Hey, what's cracking, everybody, man? It's your boy, Jason Yamamoto. So anyway, today's question is about whether joining the Army Reserves or just the reserve component, just in general, is it better to join the reserves than joining the National Guard when it comes to deployment, when it comes to social life? Is it more stable? That's the real question. Is it more stable? You know, a lot of people like stability in their life, and they want to provide a service for the country without having to sacrifice too much of their time out of their life. Now that question is kind of contradictory, because what you're asking is you want stability in your life, but you want the whole benefits of being in the reserves, right? And the benefits in the reserves and National Guard, I believe it's fair. $200 for your entire family for health insurance, and then if you're single or individual, $60. Not too bad. Add $15 to that, and you get freaking dental insurance, right? But that's not what I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about benefits. Let's talk about whether the reserves is the better choice for those people who want stability. So you have to understand that the National Guard and the reserves is a part-time gig. It's a part-time gig. And yes, there is active duty within those components. You can go active duty in the National Guard and the reserves, right? But for those who want to remain part-time, the reserves would be a better choice for stability, right? Would be. Because the National Guard, when the National Guard deploys, that's if you are healthy, there's nothing wrong with you, you didn't have surgery where it takes a year to recover, you have some fucking foreign-born disease or anything like that, right? You're as healthy as can be, right? And the National Guard, once a unit is activated, right, for deployment, the whole unit goes. They'll probably leave like 10 people behind to make sure the unit is, run smoothly from the rear. And that's mostly a bunch of fucking old guys, extremely old guys, right, who don't want to deploy. They did their time, and they got like maybe 1 year left in their contract, something like that. But in the reserves, it's both. They can pluck you for your specific MOS, like if you're water treatment, for some odd reason you pick water treatment as your job, which is an important job, by the way. They can pluck you, and I don't want to say force you into a deployment, but they can pluck you. It's a probability that they can pluck you, and you don't have to go with your unit. Most of the time you'll go with your unit if you get activated in the reserves. But if you have a very critical job in the military, like interpreter, interrogator, something, right, they're going to pluck your ass in. They're going to send you to a unit that needs your specific job. And most of the time they're doing that because the Army, the big Army, active duty Army, they don't have that job, and they need that job filled. If an active duty component is going to a war zone and they have an empty slot, like just empty slot for a person to fill in, and they can't find anybody else, they're going to look into the reserves. They're going to see that you fulfill that job title, and they're going to pluck you, and it's like, hey, you're activated for active duty, and you can't say no. You got to go because you've committed yourself to this position. Now, the probability for that to happen, there's a probability for everything in the Army. You just got to remember that. The probability for that is mostly depending on your job. If you're a fucking cook or you're a supply, highly doubted that you'll get activated. But if you get a critical job, just remind you, if you have a critical job, the probability for you to be plucked, right, I call it plucked, it's about 70%. 70%. Like I said, if you have a fucking top secret fucking clearance, right? Top secret clearance, you hold a very important job title. As a matter of fact, if you're a fucking dentist, if you're a dentist or a doctor, your probability of getting plucked it's been increased to 80 to 90%. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, you're gonna see yourself deploying back to back, and that's why the Army has a hard time retaining these critical MOSs. Yeah. So just keep in mind, the more critical you are in the Army, the more higher chance you're going to get asked to deploy. Alright, so just keep that in mind. And also, lower rank, E1 through E4, it's private second class, first class, specialist. Most of the time you're not going to be requested to go unless, like I said, you hold a very important job title. So if you refuse to get promoted to a sergeant or staff sergeant, etc., most likely you're not going to get plucked. All right, your chances of getting plucked is about maybe 10% chance. Really depends. So essentially, if you don't want to get deployed, right, you find a unit in the reserves. And see if you can get hired into a non-deploying unit, like a supporting unit, like drill sergeants. Drill sergeants need admin, supplies, stuff like that, so that way they don't get deployed. I mean, drill sergeant units don't get deployed. I mean, it's just obvious for obvious reasons, right? So just keep in mind that there are non-deploying units. So try to research units in your area that are not deploying or are non-deployable, and because their mission is a little bit different from other units' missions. All right, so those are some ideas. And with the reserves, their drill schedule compared to the National Guard, like I said, National Guard is a little bit more complicated. Sometimes drill schedules for the National Guard is not just Saturday and Sunday. Sometimes it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sometimes it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sometimes it's not even the full Friday. They ask you to come in like at fucking 6 p.m. on Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday. And then sometimes you're 2 weeks and in the summer, it's not 2 weeks in the summer. Sometimes it's 2 weeks in the spring. Sometimes in the fall. I don't know, man. Sometimes the National Guard can't make up his fucking decision on which fucking dates they want to go fucking train, right? And sometimes it fucks with you. But with the Guard, I mean not the Guard, with the reserves, it's a little bit better. It's not as hectic. And it's really 2 weeks. It's not like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Sometimes the Guard can make you go to those 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks out of the year, it could turn to 3 to fucking 5 weeks sometimes. And I'm not fucking lying to you. All right, it is what it is. So just keep that in mind, that the reserves is a little bit more stable than the Guard. So if you want a little bit more stability in your life, then join the reserves and pick not a non-critical job in the Army, and you should be fine. All right. So just remember that, and hopefully you make your decision. It's your boy Jason Yamamoto, and I'll talk to you guys later.